Hey everyone, welcome back to Big Strong Book. I'm Reed, and today we are going to be discussing the foreword and the first chapter in Stone of Farewell. So we're beginning the second book in the series. So I want to start by saying it's interesting to me, and I think Tad Williams is the only author that I've ever read who does this, who instead of calling the cold open of a book the prologue and the ending the epilogue, instead he calls them by foreword and afterword. When I think of forewords and afterwards, I think of more like acknowledgement sections of books rather than a prologue and an epilogue. But in any case, the forewords can be considered prologues within these series. Likewise, the scant afterwards can be epilogues. So we open Stone of Farewell with Brother Hangfisk. If you remember him from the abandoned monastery saga within the Dragonbone Chair. And he's making his way to Naglamund as if to warn them for what's coming. But he feels that it's the last safe place to go to. It just says Naglamund was the place to go. Old Bishop Anadis would welcome Hangfisk. The bishop would admire the monk's clever eye for what he had seen, the stories that Hangfisk could tell of what had happened at the abbey, the unseasonable weather. But they must know about the cold, mustn't they? However, when he gets in, when Hangfisk reaches Naglamund, he sees the Norns. The Norns caught him effortlessly, then carried him back with them into the depths of the desolated castle, beneath the shadowed ice-mantled towers and the ceaselessly flickering lights. And when Naglamund's new masters whispered to him in their secret musical voices, his screams for a while overtopped even the howling wind. So we begin part one, called Storm's Eye. And we begin in the Ikanuk mountain of Mintahawk. And Simon is dreaming. He's traveling the road of dreams. At first he thinks that he is within Dr. Morganis' chamber, but then he awakens and sees that he's essentially sharing a bigger cave room with Osten and Jariki, because of course, if you remember, Sludig and Binibig have been imprisoned by the Ikanuk. So it says it was only a hole, but it made a very sufficient prison for Sludig and Binibig. And we continue into actually Sludig's perspective. And there's this voice that's kind of looking into where Sludig and Binibig's prison cell is and calling for him. 9 times 9 days, Binibig, your spear stood before my cave and I waited for you. I waited and I called out your name in the place of echoes. Nothing came back to me but my own voice. Why did you not return and take up your spear again? And Binibig gets kind of pissy at them and that voice goes away. And we cut back to Simon, and Jariki is telling Simon that he must go. Like, in a couple of days he must leave. But Simon's like, no, you have to, like, Binibig is under the threat of death, and same with Sludig, like, you have to help them. And he says, I have no right or power to make the Connacht do anything. Also, I have other responsibilities and duties you cannot understand. But Simon says, no, I can't leave Mintahawk without Binibig and without Sludig. And so they have some soup. And he says, but what are we going to do for Binibig? Anything? And Jariki says, we will have a chance to speak on his behalf tomorrow. Excuse me. I have not yet discovered his crime. Few Connacht speak any language but their own. Your companion is a rare troll indeed, and I am not very accomplished in theirs. Simon dreams of a child's face that night, says, but the solemn eyes were old and deep as a well in a deserted churchyard. She seemed to want to tell him something. Her mouth worked soundlessly. And Simon and Osten make their way to the meeting, and they pass a gaggle of children, and they pass by a place called the Ice House, and that confuses Simon. He says, does somebody live there? Osten says, Jariki didn't say. And so again, they continue their way up to kind of to a vast hole, which somebody says, or Jariki says, it is the house of the ancestor. And Simon asks, is this where the king of the trolls lives? And Jariki says, yes, and the queen of the trolls as well. So within this room, there are so many people in there, and Jariki, about the pair that's kind of the focal point of this room, Nunica is the queen, and Umanak is the king, essentially. And so Simon and Osten prepare essentially to say their piece about why their friends should be spared. And there's kind of a back and forth between Jariki having to, for Jariki to translate for Simon. And eventually they ask what they can do, and he tells Jariki, he says, there is something they can do. They can free Benebik and Sludig, our companions, for your friends, if you would do us a favor. And Jariki just tells him, I promised myself that I would not mistranslate or interfere in your speech with the lords of Ekanuk. But I ask you now as a favor to me, do not ask this of them, please. Why not? Please, as a favor I will explain later, I ask you to trust me. Sounds like you want me to desert him? And Jariki says, I ask too much of you. Simon says, no, I'm ashamed. I'm an idiot. Ask the two of them if I can speak to them tomorrow, to the king, to Umanak and Nunica. And Jariki speaks in his language, and he says, I have no right to interfere in your justice and will not. I do ask that the judgment of Benebik of Mintahawk not go forward until his companions, including the boy Seaman, have a chance to speak in his behalf, and that the same be granted also for the Rimmersman Sludig. This I ask of you in the name of the Moon Woman, our shared root. So they say, okay, 2 days then, when the boy is stronger, we shall hear from them. Yes, and so this, I maybe misstated it earlier. This wasn't the chance for them to say their piece yet. It was merely to kind of, for the king and queen to go over what happened with Ermsheim and the Uden tree and all of that. So they have been allowed to say their piece in a few days' time. And Nunica ends by saying, kind hearts must never overthrow just law, Prince Jariki, or all set as spawns, Scythi as well as mortals, and return naked to the snows. Benebik shall have his judgment. And Osten, Jariki, and Simon leave the cavern. That is the end of chapter 1. No spoilers for now. This was just a nice short introduction to the second book. So, the foreword and chapter 1 of Stone of Farewell. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys next time.